this is the Yuneec Q500, but it's the GoPro model. So instead of having the built-in camera, you put your own GoPro on it. It's a good option for people who already have a GoPro. The drone itself was just about $600 on sale. I got one of the last ones of these that were being produced. If you can get your hands on one, it's a good deal. They're going out on clearance and stuff now, so go check them out. I got 2 batteries for it. They last about 20 minutes each, so with the 2 batteries you get about 40 minutes of flight time, give or take, depends how hard you're flying. It's got really nice big propellers. I think they're 11 or 12 inch. Here's my hand for comparison. But yeah, it's a really nice stable drone, really good for video. It's not super fast, but good for video. And the remote has a built-in screen, so you can watch the video live and see what you're recording. You can't control the camera from the controller, so you can't start and stop recording. You have to do that from the ground. You can just set the picture mode to take a picture every 2 seconds or 5 seconds or whatever, and then just start a video. The only problem is you have really long takes. Another nice feature with this drone is you get this handle, and the gimbal comes off of the drone. It goes onto the gimbal and goes onto here, and then you can use it to kind of walk around and take nice stable video. So yeah, we'll take it outside and go for a flight. Alright, before we go outside, I'm just going to show you how the battery goes in. There's a little door on the back, and it just clicks in and opens up. And then these batteries, they're a hard plastic case. It's nice compared to the lipos I've been using before building my own drones. They're a lot more durable. So yeah, you just stick it in the back and then click that shut. And it's that easy. Before we go, we'll just walk over here, over to the computer, and we'll just check out the wind for a second here. So in the last 30 minutes, we've had a gust up to 5 miles an hour, but we're averaging about 2. Well, averaging 3. Constant 2. So that's not too bad. So yeah, we'll see how it does in the wind. Okay, so we're outside now, and I want to show you on the controller here. It's got 3 modes: Smart, Angle, and Home. Smart, it kind of gives you a protective circle around yourself, so it won't let you fly within, I think, 10 or 15 meters of yourself. The only thing with that is you have to remember not to take off within 10 or 15 meters of yourself, or it can kind of dart out to that circle. Angle mode is just kind of regular mode, where the sticks, the orientation is always forward to the drone and not to the controller. Smart mode, forward is always to the controller. I never learned to fly like that. I learned to fly flying kind of like regular drones that I built. So I don't fly like that ever at all. But it'd be easy to get it home if you ever lost orientation really far away from yourself. So that would be nice. And then home mode brings it home. And again, I try not to use that because, quite honestly, around my house where I fly, there's a lot of hills and a lot of big trees in different areas. So if I were ever click home, unless it's a low pass home, you could get tangled up in a tree, so I try not to use that. So yeah, there's the drone there on the ground. As you can see, everything's snow covered. So to take off, the first thing that you do is always make sure that I'm in angle mode, and then you start the controller, and then I let that boot up for a second. Go over to the GoPro, turn the GoPro on, let everything boot up for a second. Once the control, you always want to make sure your controller is booted up before your drone, so your drone doesn't just fly off somewhere. So we'll just give it a second to boot up. So one thing I would say to anyone who's thinking about getting into drones, buying their first drone, is you have to remember you are flying something, and you know, it's definitely a dangerous activity and an expensive one. and you have to learn how to fly. The first thing I did was I learned how to fly like a $50 little electric airplane, and crashed that quite a few times. Really, mostly learning about wind and how the land affects the wind. Like where I live here, we're kind of in a valley. I'll show you a picture and kind of draw the wind out for you. This is the area that we live. That's Lake Ontario below. We live in eastern Ontario, Canada. And the wind predominantly blows off of the water from the southwest and blows up towards our property, as you'll see here in a second when we zoom in. And as the wind comes up to our property, we're kind of sitting in a valley. There's a road that runs up towards the right of the screen there. And that road is on the top of a ridge. As the wind blows in, it curves around through the valley. And the effects can be quite dramatic. On the other side, the wind just kind of blows, and it's fairly docile, as there's not as much of a curve in the valley. And on top of the ridge, if you fly, the wind can dump off either side. It can really blow you around. Like how it turns in the valley. And I believe that's called rotor. And that really affects me the first, like, probably really the first 60 to 75 feet. And then the next, 50 feet after that's a little bumpy. And if you can get above that, then it's pretty smooth up there, or at least it's consistent. Whereas down on the ground, it can be quite rough. So you'll see once we kind of get the drone going, especially with it being a little gusty today, we'll kind of get up and going and above everything quickly and then settle in. That's definitely how I'd suggest to fly at first, is just get off the ground, get up 100, 150, 200 feet away from everything, so that if you do make a mistake or the wind bobbles you around a little bit, you've got room to play with. I do fly low in certain occasions. If you've watched some videos, you'll see, and hopefully we'll see more of that this summer as I'm getting better and better at flying. But it's taken me, probably about a year and a half to get to the point where I'm at flying. So don't think that you can just get a drone, hop in, and go start flying around. Everything's going to be smooth. You'll spend a few $1,000s pretty quick. But yeah, it's definitely a sport that you can get into, because they're, little tiny drones now are $50, $60. So it's getting more and more affordable, and you just got to take it slow and learn how to fly first. But here we go. Okay, so we've got video now. As you can see on here, it's just the driveway in front of it. And we will go and step in front. We should see ourselves. And now we'll go click record on it. Take a couple steps back. And then we're going to click this red button here. It starts the motors. So you just click and hold. And then the motors start up. You let them spin for a couple seconds. And then I'm going to just put the camera down. It's hard to do with one hand. So the first thing we do is we pop off the ground 10 or 15 feet really quick, and then we just kind of sit there for a second, make sure that the drone is operating well and everything looks good, and then from there we take off. We go up to about 160 feet as we take off towards the west here. The wind today is coming out of the north. The diagram there I showed you, mostly the wind comes off the south. But today the wind is blowing from the north. The wind kind of operates in the same way because the valley kind of, faces north to south. So the action of the wind is still basically the same. So we go to 160 feet here. As you can see, the video is quite stable. The drone's operating quite well. For this video, we're using a GoPro Hero 3, 1080p and 30 frames per second. We cross the road here. I wouldn't cross the road if we lived on a busier road, or if I wasn't an experienced pilot and I'm standing by the road. I could see if there was any cars coming anyway. So now we're at about 160 feet. We go from 160 feet to 200 feet as we come around to the west and line up in front of the house. For the most part, this drone, the video, it's really good at not getting any landing gear or rotor in the video. But you will see in a few seconds here, I do get a gust of wind, and as I'm stopping the drone in front of the house, you will see a little bit of rotor there and a little bit of landing gear. And that can really affect your shot. It can really, really blow your shot. So, um, there are different drones without landing gear or where the camera is in a different position, especially the new Mavic and that they're putting them on the front of the drones now, which I think is a really good idea. Um, there are definitely advantages to the way this camera is mounted, um, but you do get some of that rotor and that landing gear when the drone is bobbling around side to side. So as you can see here, we're going up. We're getting to about 400, 430 feet here, and then we start to fly north. So the wind is coming out of the north at about 2 or 3 kilometers an hour, and we're flying at about half speed here. As you can see, we get a gust of wind that comes kind of from a different direction there, and that's that wind, kind of that rotor effect getting blown around by the surface still, even at this height sometimes. So we keep flying, and we go out to about 1,000 feet here, away from the controller. This drone, the controller receives video feed up to about 1,000 feet. I haven't tested the drone beyond 1,000 feet. I've gone to about 1,100 feet, and there I lost video, but I still had connection to the drone and still had good control. The drone was still very responsive and agile, but I did not have any video. At about 1,000 feet is sort of where I lose or where I start to have difficulty controlling the orientation of the drone or keeping which way is forward. I could always switch to smart mode, but I figure that's far enough. So I usually, try to just keep my orientation and keep the drone within about 1,100 feet. For the most part, if you're flying low or around any obstacles, I find that I really have to be within a few hundred feet to really be able to see the obstacles well enough to avoid them and to feel safe flying. Otherwise, the easiest way to avoid obstacles when you're a new pilot, whether you're flying planes or drones, is to fly above them. Get way above. You have the advantage of having all this space above the trees. Get in it. Don't fly 10, 20 feet above the trees. So now we're at about 1,000 feet here. We just turn around, keeping our orientation. I find it's easier to keep orientation when turning yourself around if I keep a little bit of forward movement to the drone, so I can tell which way is forward all the time. And now we do a full speed pass back to the house with the wind behind us. And here we probably hit speeds of probably about 60 kilometers an hour. And we covered that 1,000 feet back to the house pretty quick. It's a really good drone. I really like it for the money. I think that it's a really good investment compared to the Phantoms. I haven't seen any Mavics or the new GoPro drone. I know that they're having issues with that, but yeah, I really like the drone. So that's my review. Subscribe for more.